Hey everybody, Nick here. I wanted to make this video on a topic that I think is quite concerning. I think needs to be spoken about more. Just to preface this, I had a friend. Well, before I get into this, look at this view. It's beautiful. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, I just want to preface this by saying that I had a friend send me this article, which confirmed a lot of my suspicions. And the article was in regards to reading levels and types of media that we take in and the effects that different sources of media have on our cognition. And there's a few things in this article that are really concerning. One of them has to do with the average reading level decreasing. The most common books read seem to stagnate in reading level. Sentence length has decreased. Paragraph length has decreased since the 1700s from around 100 words per paragraph to now around 58, and that was in 2010. It's probably even lower now. Sentence complexity is just getting less and less. I think the sentence length if I remember correctly from the article, in the early 1700s, it's around 40 words per sentence. Now we're down to about like 16 on average. And the reason I want to talk about this stuff is because I think it really is showing where we're headed psychologically, intellectually, attention-wise. We seem to be attracted towards types of media that have less and less content, that come across as more simple. Simple stuff sells. That's what the article says at the end. And I'll post this article in the description. But the main concern I have with this is the loss of information. The true loss of vital things that we need to learn about. I was trying to think, the article is making an argument. Has a lot to do with the types of media, which is certainly the case, I think. So I mentioned with the advent of television, readability scores, everything seems to have kind of stagnated quite a bit. But I really think that it has more to do with the sheer amount of information that we have access to now. We could spend our entire lives studying one subject. There's an absurd level. There's an absurd amount of things that you can learn just about. Look at all these plants around me. Like all these different bushes, grasses, animals, just nature in general. You could spend your entire life just learning about plants, just learning about mushrooms, just learning about birds, fish. It's just one thing. That's not even getting to the biology of those things. It's not even getting into the biochemical processes, the neurological stuff, what the mind of the animal's capable of, the chemistry, there's an insane amount of detail that we know now. And when there's so much to learn about, things have to get condensed down. Things have to be simplified. I'm saying have to. I don't think they have to, but for the sake of being able to learn, it's kind of something that seems like it was just a natural trend. When you have an overabundance of things, you got to be able to take it in easier. It's similar to, I think, how think of how our eyes work. Like, we have a focal point, and that's taking in a very precise spot. Like, you look at something, you see it very high detail, but everything around your focal point is still being processed, but not to the same level of detail. It has to get simplified. It has to get lowered in resolution. Could you imagine if everything in your field of view was taken in as much detail as what you're focusing on? We'd be extremely overwhelmed. It would be too much sensory data. And I think the similar thing is occurring with information. And the big concern, is that when we simplify things, we lose so much of what they mean. I think of sayings I've heard from my grandparents, I've heard from my parents, talking about, you have something going on, and they say, well, sometimes that's just the way things are. It is what it is. Keep your chin up. And we hear these things sometimes, and we scoff at them, and it's like, yeah, thanks, that's so useful. But I don't think that these sayings were always so simple. I think that over the course of time, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the meaning in them. And just like the way things are going now, a lot of these sayings have become, they just seem really trite, really shallow, really empty, not something to take serious. And I look back on when I was learning about different religions in school. What did I learn about Christianity? 10 Commandments. That's it. What did I learn about Hinduism? Oh yeah, the caste system. That's all I could really tell you. What did I learn about Buddhism? I don't know. Suffering is created by desire. Desires lead to suffering. What more was I taught? Nothing. It's because I wasn't specialized. I was trying to be taught a bunch of different stuff. And you can't teach a whole religion. You can spend your whole life learning about a religion. And I think that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this. It's too much information. And I think that memes on the internet are essentially the epitome of what's happening. What is a meme? A meme is like a consolidation of a concept into a single image that you can just pass the image around. People can look at the image and understand what concept you're trying to get at. There's so much lost there. There's so much lost. So much valuable information. I have this like image in my mind essentially of, were things always like this? Were things always this way? And I try to think back on when things were, smaller populations, less stuff was being written down. It was more verbal, oral traditions, where things were stories. I think those were the times when you were learning a lot you would sit and listen to an elder tell you about their experiences, tell you the way the world is. Everything would make sense because it was a long, detailed story. Everything was interconnected. But now, in school, all the subjects we learn are just isolated from one another. And they're taught as if it's this thing, and it's that thing. Like it's all simplified, but in reality, everything is interconnected. And it just scares me that we're going to end up simplifying things so much that we're going to forget where to look. We're gonna forget what it means to really know something. We're gonna get these small memes, these images, and think that's it. That's what I'm trying to understand. There it is. It's like, no, there's actually way more to this. You know, I look at philosophies that I learned in college. You know, a few that get just absolutely annihilated because they get oversimplified are specifically Stoicism, which I think is the most practical philosophy of all philosophies. People just think being a Stoic is being cold and emotionless. And I'm not going to get into what Stoicism is, but it is not that at all. Complete oversimplification. And people hear that and then they think they know what it is and they just shrug it off. Or if you look at the hedonists, oh, there's a mosquito biting my wrist. Cool. The hedonists, people just think that they lived a life of pleasure. I mean, that is kind of what the word hedonism means. Which is way more nuanced. Way more nuanced. Those are just two examples. You know, think about in your life something that you know about, something you study, something you're interested in, that other people just oversimplify. And that's what's happening. You know, with the dumbing down of reading, the decrease in sentence length, decrease in paragraph length, stagnation of reading levels. You know, not only is the information that we're getting not as accurate, but the article talks about that. The article mentions like reading is actually what makes people smart, but you need to be reading above your current reading level. You need to challenge yourself. But things are going in a downward trend, and we're just getting stupider. I know that sounds harsh, but we really are. Critical thinking is atrocious. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, you know, but look at some people and, you know, I saw someone on this dating app the other day that said that they want to get rid of free speech because there's too much misinformation being spread. Did they even think about what they just said at all? How is getting rid of free speech going to fix misinformation? Misinformation is fixed precisely through the act of having free speech. If you try to limit what people can talk about, that's how you get misinformation. Have you ever read 1984? Probably not, because it's getting banned in schools. Who knows why? A lot of conspiracies probably around that, but yeah. I could go on for a while about this. I've been talking for about 15 minutes, but maybe you guys will see this concern that this article only proved to me. You know, I had this concern because I was thinking about memes one day and philosophy examples, and then I read this article and it hit me that this is the case. This is the way things are going. So to close this video, I'd essentially just ask you guys to, you know, reflect on your positions on things. Did you really look into it? Did you really do your research? Or did you just take some face value 14-word sentence oversimplification by someone who probably doesn't know what they're talking about and take that as fact? Because once we start doing that, we are screwed. Absolutely screwed. You know, people say we need to think for ourselves. Surely we do. But where do we learn things? We learn from other people. We always read what someone else wrote. We always listen to what someone else said. We always watch what someone else created. You know, it's not a closed loop on ourselves. We have to rely on other people. So yeah, as much as I'm trying to do this, I'm asking everyone around me to do the same thing. Because once we forget what knowledge is, once we forget what it means to truly learn something, to truly understand something, we won't even know where to start. It's a pretty depressing end to this video, but I don't think this topic is something, it's a red-bellied woodpecker, I don't think this topic is something that is a very positive topic. So instead of trying to end this on a good note, let's see if I could turn my camera around. No, I can't do that. But this will be the positive note to end the video on.